I grew up in a middle-class Indian home where sugar boxes doubled up as bank lockers, where a 15 rupee note you might find folded in the corner of an old sari, where we read the right side of the menu card before the left, and we collected mini soaps and shampoos from hotels like National Treasures. We paid for them. But when it came to tradition, when it came to money traditions, we had this sweet ritual in our homes. When our elderly relatives visited, we showed respect by touching their feet. And they gave us a small token of blessing, not a fortune, just 3 or 5 rupee notes. I would squirrel away these blessings into my piggy bank, dreaming of my ultimate treat, Lalaji's samosa from my school canteen. A fried delicacy dripping with colorful chutneys or sauces. One day, my grand aunt visited us. I was more excited about the blessing money than her visit. Now, family legend had it that my grand aunt wanted my mother to marry her filthy rich nephew. But when my mother married my father instead, she developed a grudge against us. Every chance she got, she would remind us of our money problems. So when I touched her feet, she smirked and slipped me a 10 rupee note. Jackpot! I rushed to hide the money in my piggy bank. A few hours later, my mother pulled me in a corner and asked me to return the money to my grand aunt. I refused. I'd already planned the samosa. But then I saw my mother briefly transform from Mother Teresa to Mother India. She administered some physical education to me. And sulking, I went to get the money. But I was angry. I decided that if I can't have the money, no one can have it. I took the 10 rupee note and tore it into pieces. Hearing my mother's approaching footsteps, I panicked. I threw the pieces into the trash can and ran away. When I woke up the next morning, I saw the 10 rupee note neatly taped back together, lying on the table. I saw my mother enter the room. I panicked again. But she came and gently sat by my side and said, Sneha, sit. I want to tell you a story. And it was a story she had read to me once. A Ukrainian folk tale of a small boy named Mikolko, born in a humble family. In this story, when Mikolko visits his wealthy aunt, he tries to hide his hunger and longing, not out of shame, but out of self-respect. And when she attempts to humiliate him, he responds with grace. Now at this point, my mother picked up the note and said, Sneha, do you see these lines where the tape is? These are the scars that we get when we fall and hurt ourselves. This note will never be the same again, but it is still worth 10 rupees. When your grand aunt gave you the money, she was being unkind. We aren't rich, but that doesn't mean we are not good enough. I thought for a while and said, Mom, if we aren't returning the note, can I have the samosa? She said, nice try, kid. I returned a new note to your grand aunt, and this money is going into your piggy bank. That day, my friends, my mother taught me a very important lesson about self-worth. She could have easily corrected my behavior by a lecture or a punishment, but instead, she shared a story. And in doing so, she invited me into her emotional world. And that invitation created meaning in my mind the real sense of the message she wanted to convey. Our brains, my friends, remember the things that we emotionally connect with. Emotions tell the brain that this is important. It has meaning. So meaning is born when emotions are felt and empathy has been felt. Empathy has been generated. Something that my previous speaker, 2 speakers before, a lady came here and spoke about empathy. It truly connects. And that is why it reminds me of a very popular quote by Ben Okri that if you want to destroy a people, poison their stories. Because when stories disappear, so does empathy. And without empathy, learning loses its soul and its potential. Now, I often hear this line. As a teacher, I earlier found it incredibly disturbing and uncomforting that those who can't act, they teach. But then I decided to treat it as a question instead of an insult. I said to myself that if I'm teaching creative writing, I must stay engaged with writing. If I'm teaching media communications, I must stay engaged with communicating. So alongside teaching, I kept practicing. Some things worked, some didn't. Many of my writing pieces found their way to well-known publications, many didn't. But I brought all of this into my classroom, not as an achievement, but as an evidence. So if I talk about a craft, say writing, I start from the middle of the process. I talk about my rewrites, my doubts, my rejections. And I've always unfailingly found this, that if I share these experiences as human stories, because I share my vulnerabilities from the point of strength. So when I share these as human stories and not as success stories, my students always connect with me more deeply. I try to model what psychologists call epistemic trust, which means when the learner trusts the source, learning deepens. They learn better and learn more efficiently. By the way, the story that I shared with you today was the product of a writing prompt that my creative writing coach, Nancy Strauss, gave me in her creative writing workshops. And that was before AI came into picture. So I only had a pen and paper with me, and I went down my memory lane, thought of this experience, and shared it with my classmates. And that, my friends, raises an important question. In an age where AI can generate 1,000 words in a few seconds, what is it that only a human story can do? Now let me take you back in history. This is how storytelling started. Earlier, long before books, algorithms, classrooms, this is how humans learned. By sitting together, listening to each other, understanding and discovering the world around them through stories. And that is the reason why classics like Wuthering Heights, one of my favorite stories, they endure. They stand the test of time, not because they are easy reads, but because they wrestle with very strong emotions like obsession, belonging, love, loss. When you read them, you don't feel like you're consuming content. You feel like you're entering a conversation that started generations ago in pursuit of a deeper understanding of the human condition, in pursuit of what uniquely makes us human. As an educator, this is what I have learned over the years, that learning is not information transfer. Learning is not content generation. AI is great at content generation, but content generation is not meaning. Meaning is born when these three intersect. Your experiences, your emotions, and your reflections. This intersection tells us, it teaches us how to discover the values that shape our lives and make us who we really are. My mother that day, my friends, didn't need an algorithm. She only needed a moment and a story to create sense in the heart and mind of an innocent child sitting beside her. And that, my friends, is still our most human responsibility, to tell stories that don't just inform minds, but help them discover meaning and shape identities. So as an educator, my relationship with AI is pretty simple, very uncomplicated. I brainstorm ideas, methods, and information with it. So just to give you an example, how do I do that? This is one of the prompts that I ask my students to give, my media communication students. I tell them that you finish writing your feature stories or your news stories and then bring AI in. So they paste their finished articles into the AI engine and give it prompts like this. Read this like a newsroom editor and flag places where the sources are missing. Now here, AI is acting as an assistant editor. I'm still the editor-in-chief because I tell them where to use information and where to use professional instinct. Let me give you another example. I very recently read out this story, Matilda by Roald Dahl, to a group of creative writing students who are 8 or 10-year-olds. After I finished reading this story, a small girl raised her hand and said, "Ma'am, Matilda is only 8 years old. Why does she read so much and fight adults instead of being scared?" Now that was a perfect child's question because it wasn't about the plot. It was about the character's emotion and identity. I could have answered this question myself, but I told her, let's try something interesting. Ask AI this question and let it answer like Matilda herself. So my student gave AI this prompt that you are Matilda, and why do you read so much instead of playing like other children? So this is what AI responded. Because books listen to me. Books don't tell me I'm wrong. In stories, I find people who think like me, and that makes me feel less alone. Now, I'll tell you what, throughout this conversation, my entire classroom was very quiet. That's because they connected with the character so much. They were eagerly waiting for AI's responses. And one student also said that, okay, so Matilda is not weird, she's just lonely. So this is where AI works best, when it is guided by curiosity, empathy, and stories. So my friends, I'll leave you with 4 simple actionable steps that you can take today as educator, trainer, teacher, or simply a speaker who wants to create an impact on their audience. Number 1, shift your focus from covering the content to creating meaning. Ask this one question to yourself. What is that one value or what is that one lesson that I want my learner to deeply understand? What is that one lesson that I want my learner to deeply understand? The moment you're able to answer this question, your focus will automatically shift from covering content to creating meaning. And you will dig deeper into your personal repertoire of experience where you can bring out examples from your own life and experience to share with your learners. Action number 2. Begin with a story, not a slide. Now, this action starts with a simple rule. If it matters, it deserves a story. I repeat, if it matters, it deserves a story. Can you all repeat it with me? If it matters, it deserves a story. Yes. So if it matters, start with a personal story. It could be a personal mistake, a classroom failure, a real-world ethical conflict. But start with a story if it really matters. Action number 3, practice intentional listening. Now, this is a very powerful tool, often overlooked. Pause after every student response. Reflect back what you heard to your students' satisfaction. Let silence do the teaching. And action number 4, use AI for efficiency, but humans for meaning. Let AI summarize. Let AI generate drafts. Let AI personalize practice, but let humans frame questions. Let humans model values. Let humans tell stories. So 3 simple takeaways for you. Information teaches skills, stories teach values. AI can support learning, but empathy is what activates it. And takeaway number 3, if we want future-ready learners, we must first keep learning human. Thank you so much. The room is open for question and answers.